Brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu khairan to the mosque committee and to the brothers from SmallDEEDS for inviting me in and giving me the pleasure to address this topic with you. I'm not used to lecturing in a monologue. It must be interactive. So I do apologize to the guys, the technical guys, if it's difficult to capture that. But I will ask you questions, yeah, and you need to respond. Because I know very well, Sunday evening, your attention span is like minimal. If I sit here talking for an hour, by the end, you'll be nodding off. Yeah. So let's keep it interactive. You want to ask questions, do. The most effective way to learn is for it to be a two-way dialogue. This is how the Prophet ﷺ used to teach. It was very rare for the Prophet ﷺ to give long speeches uninterrupted. Yes, he ﷺ, when he was describing the events of the Day of Judgment, this is khabar. This is news. The Prophet ﷺ would lead the Fajr Salah, then start speaking about all the things that will happen until the Day of Judgment. Then he would stop for Dhuhr and then continue. So these were very rare occasions when the Prophet ﷺ would monologue, just speak one way. But most of the time, when you read the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, he is asking a question, the companions are responding, he is then clarifying, or they are in some practical real life situation. This is how learning is done. Okay. Now the topic, may Allah reward the brothers who organized this, is regarding Masjid al-Aqsa. And specifically the virtues of Masjid al-Aqsa, and we will throw some light on what are orthodox Jewish beliefs regarding this sacred site. Number one, we are ignorant regarding our religion itself and the high status given to Masjid al-Aqsa in our religion. And number two, we're even more ignorant regarding Orthodox Judaism and their beliefs regarding this site. You see, because the Haram, we go, alhamdulillah, we go for Umrah, we go for Hajj. So we know the Haram, we know the Kaaba, we know Safa, we know Marwa, we know Hajr al-Aswad. It's something alive within our culture, within our families, something we've seen with our own eyes, we've been there, we touched it, we felt it. But Masjid al-Aqsa, it's not that many people go there. So as a result, its memory begins to die out. But there could not be more emphasis in Islam in this sacred site, on this sacred site. Before we actually speak about some of the ayat and the ahadith regarding Masjid al-Aqsa, and then proceed to speak about Orthodox Judaism and their beliefs regarding this sacred site, we have to ask the question, does everybody know what Masjid al-Aqsa is? Because there's different terms which are used. There is Masjid al-Aqsa. What other terms are used to describe this place? Yes? Bayt al-Maqdis. Anything else?
Al-Aqsa.
Al-Aqsa. Al-Quds. In the news they talk about Temple Mount.
Third holiest site.
Yeah, third holiest site. So there's a lot of different terms which are not exactly the same. So Al-Quds refers to the whole city, Jerusalem. Al-Quds. Bayt al-Maqdis is effectively that sacred site. This sacred site is around 35 hectares, and it's in the old city of Jerusalem on the top of a hill, basically. So it's in the old city of Jerusalem on top of a hill, and it's around 35 hectares, quite a big site. It is known as Al-Aqsa or Masjid al-Aqsa. The slightly confusing bit is that that site, which is on top of the hill in the old city of Jerusalem, it has a masjid in it which is called Masjid al-Aqsa as well. So there is a Masjid al-Aqsa which is literally a masjid within that site, and then the whole compound itself, the whole area on top of that hill is also known as Masjid al-Aqsa. There is another important monument in that site. What is that? Dome of the Rock. Yeah, Dome of the Rock. This is the oldest extant Islamic monument in the world, surviving Islamic monument in the world, built something like 700-800 years ago. Okay? And we'll speak about what the significance of the Dome of the Rock is as well. So first thing people get confused about is, what exactly are we speaking about? We are speaking about the sacred site, which is on top of a hill, which is in the old city of Jerusalem, which has various names like Masjid al-Aqsa or Al-Aqsa or Bayt al-Maqdis. And this is don't say the third most sacred site in Islam. It sounds as if, oh, you already got one or two. This is what Jewish people say. You already have Makkah, you have Medina, just leave us alone with this. It's not the third most sacred site. It is one of three sacred sites in Islam. One of the three sacred sites in Islam. Talk about it this way. One of the three sacred sites in Islam. Makkah, Medina, Al-Aqsa. Okay, with regards to virtues, it could not be clearer. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he said, Suratul Isra, the 17th chapter of the Quran, Suratul Kahf, the 18th chapter, Suratul Maryam, the 19th chapter, Surah Taha, the 20th chapter, Surah Al-Anbiya, the 21st chapter. These are the earliest revelations and they are my treasures. This is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He is one of the scholars of the Quran. He described these 5 surahs as the earliest revelations and they are his treasures. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is one of the scholars of the companions and the scholars of the Quran. So when he emphasizes these 5 surahs and when he says that they are from the earliest revelations, that means these surahs contain the basic building blocks of Iman. The basic fundamentals on which the companions were built. That Iman, that character was built on these surahs. And how does Surah Al-Isra begin? Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-harami ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlahu linuriyahu min ayatina innahu huwa as-sami'ul basir. Glorified be he who took his slave from Masjid al-Haram, from Makkah, to Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. لِنُرِيَهُ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا بَارَكْنَا حَوْلَهُ, the region of which we have blessed. لِنُرِيَهُ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا, to show him our signs. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. Indeed, it is he who is all hearing, all seeing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established the importance of Masjid al-Aqsa in one of the earliest surahs to be revealed in the opening verse. It is from the fundamentals of Iman. This is not some political movement. This is not an Arab movement. This is the fundamentals of Iman. To hold on to the importance of Masjid al-Aqsa to Islam. This is the first Qibla in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ was praying towards this masjid before he was praying towards the Kaaba, subhanallah. It is the first Qibla of Islam. Abu Darda, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, what was the first masjid to be built? And the Prophet ﷺ said what? What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Al-Kaaba. And the Prophet Abu Darda asked, what was next? And what did the Prophet ﷺ say? Masjid al-Aqsa. And Abu Darda asked, what was the time between the two?
40 years.
Prophet ﷺ said 40 years. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said the reward of praying in the haram is 100,000 prayers. The reward for praying in my masjid, meaning Masjid al-Nabawi, is 1,000 prayers. And the reward for praying in Masjid al-Aqsa is 500 prayers. So we don't say the third most important site in Islam because it sounds as if we can do without it then. If it's only the third. We say one of three. One of the 3 sacred sites of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, when the companions asked, and actually one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ asked regarding Masjid al-Aqsa, the Prophet ﷺ said, you should go and visit and pray there. And she asked, what if we cannot do that? The Prophet ﷺ said, send some oil to be used in its lamps. Subhanallah. Send some oil to be used in its lamps. Our connection with Masjid al-Aqsa must be so strong that even if we can't go there, we should be donating for its upkeep, to keep it going, for its maintenance, whatever we can. And in the recent troubles in July 2017, that's exactly what the Imam of the Masjid said. A call to all Muslims to go and pray in Masjid al-Aqsa. And there are some organizations, literally every other month, they go there, just to keep it alive, that spirit and our connection with Masjid al-Aqsa. So that's a brief introduction into the virtues of Masjid al-Aqsa. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ himself not only speech, not only words, but through action showed the importance of Masjid al-Aqsa in Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. The Prophet ﷺ travelled himself in body in the miraculous night journey, the most spectacular journey in the whole of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Jibreel came to the Prophet ﷺ. He cut open his heart, cleaned it, washed it in Zamzam water in a golden vessel. Then took the Prophet ﷺ with an animal which is unique, known as al-Buraq, which is like a cross between a mule and a donkey with wings. And the Prophet ﷺ in one night went at the speed of light from Mecca to Jerusalem, flying through the horizon. And there took place the greatest congregational salah ever to be performed, a salah which will never ever be performed again, subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ led prayer in Masjid al-Aqsa, and behind him was every prophet and every messenger ever to be sent to humanity, subhanallah. Hundreds of thousands, more than 120,000 prophets ever sent to human beings, they were all brought back to life from their graves, in their body, to stand behind the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ led the salah, subhanallah. Who do you imagine may have been in the first row? Ibrahim alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam. What if we could be just one salah? Maybe just even at the back. No, this is not honor for us. This is honor only for the Anbiya. And this shows all of the prophets recognized the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as their leader, as their imam. And it also shows that our religion is the religion of all the prophets. They all prayed, they all bowed, they all made sajda. There was no need for a class. Right, guys, we're going to pray now, and this is how you pray salah. I know you're not used to it. No, they all prayed. They all understood how to pray. Our religion of Islam, it's not a religion which started with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This sharia, this code of law started with the Prophet ﷺ. But the fundamentals of Islam date right back to Adam alayhi salam. So the Prophet ﷺ physically, in body, showed us the importance of this place. And that journey, the Prophet ﷺ is not just praying, just visiting the masjid. He is laying claim to that place. He is saying this place belongs to the Muslims, by himself going there and leading salah with all the prophets. Let me ask you a question. Who owns Masjid al-Aqsa, that region? Who owns it? Jordan.
The custodians of the custodians, yeah, the king
Okay.
custodian, isn't it?
Okay, so
But it's technically for the Muslims.
It's not owned by anybody.
that's more of a yes. That's a good answer. It is not owned by anybody. It is a waqf. It is a waqf. It is an endowment. No Muslim ruler, no non-Muslim ruler has the right to buy or sell that place, has the right to shut it down, has the right to do anything to it. There is a waqf for that place. You know waqf? If you go into any masjid, I don't know if in this masjid, but you'll find the Qur'ans, they say on it waqf. That means this is an ongoing charity. It means somebody donated those Qur'ans, and you are not allowed to just take the Qur'ans and go home and just keep it for yourself and say, I'm going to use it now, alhamdulillah. You can't give the masjid £5 and say, look, can I take this Qur'an home? I want to keep it. No. This has to be kept. ongoing charity for Muslims. So we'll go a bit more into detail about this, but it is a waqf. Nobody has the right, Muslim or non-Muslim, to harm that place, to take it, to buy it, to sell it. It belongs as an endowment to all Muslims to benefit from it until the Day of Judgment. Now we use this word Temple Mount. Temple Mount. Or you didn't, I used it. Because in the news, that region is called, often referred to as Temple Mount. However, in news outlets such as the BBC now, they tend to use both the Jewish name and the Muslim name. The actual full title for the Muslim name, I forgot to mention, Al-Haram al-Sharif. This is what it's called, Al-Haram al-Sharif. So Masjid al-Aqsa, Bayt al-Maqdis, the Dome of the Rock. By the way, when the Prophet ﷺ then, after leading the Salah of all the Prophets, he then ascended through the heavens from this rock. You know the Dome of the Rock? So this is where the Khalif built the Golden Dome. Inside it is a rock, a huge rock. And this is where, according to some ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ stood and he then ascended through the heavens. Also, this is according to some narrations. It's difficult to confirm 100%. But according to some narrations, this is where the bugle will be blown to signify the Day of Judgment. So this is highly important place. Highly important place. Now so inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to go there, to pray there. And just by praying there, you are supporting the cause of Masjid al-Aqsa. And in line with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you should have regular standing orders set up to organizations like Interpal. There is an actual charity, the name escapes me, which is responsible for the upkeep of Masjid al-Aqsa as well. And you should try, just like the hadith said, send some oil for its lamps. Whatever small donations you can give to help maintain this masjid, it is the least we can do. So what is this name Temple Mount? And let's explore a bit more about Orthodox Jewish beliefs regarding this region. Temple Mount, they call it Mount because it's literally on a hill. Yeah, like I said, it's in the old city of Jerusalem on a hill. Where does this word temple come from? Why do they call it temple?
It's Temple of Solomon was built.
Yes. This is key to understanding. In Orthodox Jewish scripture, their most holiest site, their most sacred site, is the Temple of Sulaiman, which they say was built by the Prophet Sulaiman. Where do they say it is? Where do they say the Temple of Sulaiman is? What do you think?
Below the existing mosque. Below the existing mosque, underneath.
Yes, that's the main view which they say. Basically, it's exactly where the masjid is, and below it, they claim, is where the site of the original Temple of Sulaiman was. That's why they call it Temple Mount. How long ago was the Temple of Sulaiman destroyed? How long ago? Exactly.
Approximately 100,000 years?
1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
70 CE was
It was destroyed more than 2,000 years ago. More than 2,000 years ago. Let me ask you a question. Let's say some Italian dude turns up at this masjid. Okay? He says, I don't know how they say hello in Italian. Anybody know?
Ciao.
Huh?
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.
Or amigo.
Amigo. That's Spanish, isn't it? Okay. Ciao. Ciao. Okay, ciao. And some Italian dude turns up at this masjid and says, my forefathers, more than 2,000 years ago, when the Romans invaded Great Britain, used to own this place. Can all of you Muslims get out because this place belongs to me? Some Italian dude turns up tomorrow morning, takes a plane from Italy, comes here and says, my forefathers, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was a Roman soldier. He invaded UK around 2,000 years ago, and he used to own this masjid, this land. Can all you Muslims get out? I own this place. Would any sane person accept this claim? Would any of you accept it? Ridiculous. Khalas, that was thousands of years ago now. We own legally, morally, religiously, whichever way you want to look at it. We own this place. It is a masjid. So the idea of bringing up a mythical temple that used to exist 2,000 years ago and laying claim to it is one of the greatest deceptions that has taken control of the minds of people around the world. They seem to believe that this is some kind of shared site. It is not. It was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE, Christian era. And before that, it was destroyed by the Babylonians around 560 years before Christ. So it has been destroyed twice, this temple, by civilizations, not Muslims, by civilizations which don't even exist anymore. The Babylonians were an ancient civilizations in Iraq. The Romans obviously no longer exist. So how possibly can you now lay the blame at the feet of the Palestinians in particular and Muslims in general and lay claim to this place? Khalas, that time has gone. Finished. Ancient history. Nowhere else in the world would we entertain a claim like this. Never mind one of the most important sacred sites of Islam. None of you would accept that for your own house. You own the deeds to the house, you paid for the house, you live here legally. Nobody can now come to you and say, my ancestors 2,000 years ago used to live here, or 2,500 years ago. I mean, that's a joke. Yet it is entertained due to the power of the media and the power of the propaganda around this place. So around 560 odd years BC, there is a report of a sacred temple that was built. Thousands of years ago, more than that, in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, there is a report of a temple that was built. And that is known as the Temple of Sulaiman. Now, this is the most sacred site in Judaism. This was a site where they used to perform rituals and sacrifices. It was the most sacred and holy site in Islam. But so they say. So they say. Does anybody know what Judeo-Christian beliefs regarding the Prophet Sulaiman are? What do they actually believe regarding Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam?
They believe he was a sinner.
They believe he was a very corrupt person. Astaghfirullah. Not just a sinner, a very corrupt person. They believe he was a magician.
Yeah, that's it.
That's why till this day you can buy books which are attributed to Sulaiman alayhi salam, talking about spells, how to trap a woman into falling in love with you. They believe he had hundreds of wives, who many of them were pagans, idol worshippers, and that he built temples, not this temple, but other temples, to please these pagan wives. They believe he's a person who abused his power. So if we're going to go down this road of talking about the Temple of Sulaiman, let's talk about Sulaiman then, alayhi salam. Because it is in Islam that he is given the utmost respect. A person of wisdom, a person who was sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the greatest king ever to live. A person who was given power over creation like no other human being ever was. And a person who used his vast resources to uphold the tawheed of Allah. As Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. Sulaiman did not commit kufr, meaning magic. It was the shayateen, the devils, that committed magic. We don't have time now to talk about Sulaiman alayhi salam, but there is a long story of how he stamped down on black magic. And it's quite a complicated, difficult story to follow. But he is actually the one who clamped down on magic. And it was those people around him at the time who were desperate for that knowledge of magic. And when he died, they brought that knowledge back. And they claimed it was from Sulaiman alayhi salam. So if we're going to go down that road of talking about the temple of Sulaiman, let's talk about Islam and how it gives Sulaiman alayhi salam respect and honor, and how it completely absolves him of this accusation that he was a magician and he was a person who was using his power corruptly, and that he was a person who used to promote idolatry. No. But this temple, this place of worship, this place of ritual was built thousands of years ago. It was destroyed by the Babylonians in around 560 something BC, before Christ. So we're talking now like 2,500 years ago. It was rebuilt by the King Harold. And again, it was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. Now the Bible talks about the destruction of the temple of Sulaiman because Isa alayhi salam is reported, Allahu A'lam, we cannot confirm it or we cannot deny it. But Isa alayhi salam, when he was leaving Jerusalem, he pointed to the temple and he prophesied that it will be completely destroyed. Every stone shall be destroyed. And that's exactly what happened. It was completely annihilated. And for hundreds of years, there was no temple of Sulaiman. There was no stone left standing. And nobody even knew where the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam is. Nobody knew. All Jews were driven out of Jerusalem by the Romans. Their knowledge of where the temple of Sulaiman was completely lost. Until several hundred years after, where a particular wall, several hundred years after, a particular wall was kind of signified as a wall where many of the rituals that used to be performed in the temple of Sulaiman would be performed. This particular wall. So to this day, what is that wall known as? Yeah, it's known as the Wailing Wall, the Western Wailing Wall. The Western Wall is its full name, and a part of it is called the Wailing Wall. This wall, okay, the outside of it is where you find Jewish pilgrims performing their acts of worship. You'll find them rocking backwards and forwards. But the inside of it, which is facing Al-Haram al-Sharif, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that is known as the Buraq Wall. The Buraq Wall. Why is it known as the Buraq Wall? The Prophet ﷺ tied the Buraq to that wall. So that wall is important in Islam as well. Very important to note. But why am I saying this? The point is, for hundreds of years, nobody knew even where the temple was. The knowledge of it was completely lost. And Jewish religion was continuing without having this temple. But it was only actually in the last 400 to 500 years, in the 16th century, where this particular wall took on a significance and a sacredness, and it became a place of pilgrimage. And this particular wall became a place where some of the rituals were to be performed, which used to be performed in this temple. So when people say the temple of Sulaiman used to be at where Masjid al-Aqsa is, how strong do you think this claim is? Is it possible to confirm it 100%? What do you think? Based on what I've just told you of the history, based on the fact it was destroyed 2,000 years ago, based on the fact that Jewish people were completely expelled from Jerusalem, and based on the fact that hundreds of years passed without anybody knowing where exactly the temple is, and based on the fact that it was only in the 16th century that a particular wall was described as the Western Wall and the last remaining wall of the Temple of Sulaiman, how strong do you think this claim is?
Not very strong.
Not very strong at all. Not possible to confirm one way or another. I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying I don't know. And I'm saying Jewish people don't know either. It's not possible to confirm. In fact, there are some biblical scholars, some Christian scholars, who according to their sources in the Bible say, most likely the Temple of Sulaiman is not where this place is, Masjid al-Aqsa. They describe a place 300 kilometers south in the city of David, according to their kind of calculations and their biblical sources. Allahu A'lam, we can't say for sure. There is a lot of kind of ambiguity, confusion. It's so long ago. And records are so kind of scanty. You can't find concrete evidence. Even if you could find it, khalas, that's history. That's ancient history. The Prophet Muhammad came. Islam came, the final religion. And this was established as a sacred Islamic site. So end of story. But if we're going to go down that road, let's be clear that you people, Jewish people, Christian people, know full well that it's not possible to 100% confirm that this is where the Temple of Sulaiman was. There has been a lot of excavation and digging to try and find archaeological evidence to prove that this is where the Temple of Sulaiman was. So you'll know famous examples where there's been digging underneath, and even when Muslims have done some renovation work and they've taken soil and removed it, various archaeologists who work for the Israeli authorities have tried to find maybe some evidence that could link this site to the Temple of Sulaiman. Do you think they found evidence?
No.
Let me tell you what they did find. Let me tell you the two most important pieces of evidence that they did find. So the first is a tiny thumb-sized ivory pomegranate, so something around the size of your thumb, made of ivory, which was discovered in 1979. And it had an ancient Hebrew inscription and was originally believed to have adorned a scepter used by the high priest in the temple. You know, when they're holding this kind of, I don't know, staff type thing, and there's like a round bit on the top. Yeah, they believe they found that from the Temple of Sulaiman. The size of a thumb, and in that there was an ancient Hebrew inscription, and they said, see, this used to belong to the high priest of the Temple of Sulaiman. It was found under the soil of your masjid. This is the place where the Temple of Sulaiman was. Do you think that's very strong evidence?
That's bad forensics.
Bad forensics, okay. It's not exactly earth-shattering evidence, is it? It's something the size of a thumb. But it was housed in the Israel Museum collection. But in 2004, the Israel Antiquities Authority reported the inscription to be a forgery. And it was taken out of the museum. You have to give them credit. At least they, at least they investigated it. Yeah, at least there are some people who have some professional integrity. So this was the most famous piece of evidence, and in 2004 it was declared a forgery. It was taken out. Okay, but all hope was not lost. Another artifact, which was called the Jehoash inscription, came to notice in 2003. It was a tablet, a stone tablet, containing a Hebrew inscription. And it had a certain kind of paint on the front with some inscription. So this was touted as the second big piece of evidence. Unfortunately, again, found to be a forgery, 2003. Okay. They found that the paint mix was something actually quite modern, although the actual stone tablet dated back to the right kind of time. The Hebrew inscription on the top was applied later by forgers. So every time they have tried to find archaeological evidence to link this site to the Temple of Sulaiman, they have failed miserably. And give credit to the archaeologists of that region. They have declared these to be forgeries. So there exists no conclusive archaeological evidence. Now, when you look at the Temple of Sulaiman, its diagrams, the artist's impression, it was huge, magnificent. The idea that not a single piece of conclusive evidence has survived to this day is very far-fetched indeed. Very far-fetched. When you consider how much resources they must be plowing in to actually try and find something that they can convince their people and the world. So let's talk about that wall. The Western Wall, and the part where the pilgrims actually, Jewish pilgrims actually stand and rock backwards and forwards, called the Wailing Wall. Does anybody know what Jewish beliefs are regarding this wall? Yeah, they put like prayers in the wall, but what do they believe regarding this wall? Anybody know? Sorry?
They're linked to the other realm.
Linked to the hereafter? I don't think so. Sorry? Sorry, I didn't understand you, uncle. Are you saying the same point, linked to the kind of hereafter?
Yeah.
No, not really. It's quite obvious. What do they think about a wall, that wall?
Oh, it's the western boundary of the old sort of temple.
Yeah, they believe it's the western boundary of the Temple of Sulaiman. They believe this is the last surviving wall from the Temple of Sulaiman, and that's why they hold it to be so sacred. Not the entire wall, they believe the foundation stones at the bottom. This is very problematic. Very problematic. We know, according to biblical scholars, that the temple was destroyed completely. Every stone was destroyed. So what, an entire wall left standing? Sounds difficult to believe. And also, if you see the wall, it's in very good condition. But that wall is now more than 2,500 years old. Difficult to believe.
Maybe paint like it is.
Paint. It's not like just, it is an impressive structure. Huge. Huge. According to some biblical scholars, this is most likely the remains of a Roman fort. Probably nothing to do with the Temple of Sulaiman. Most likely the remains of a Roman fort. You know where they used to house the Roman soldiers? They had the technology, the manpower to build these kind of things. Not ancient Jewish people, no. So Allahu Alam, it's not possible. This is the problem. Everything they are believing is something so speculative, some debatable, maybe not. And in fact, another view is that this is actually just a retaining wall. Because it's a hill, to prevent the earth like being unstable, you have to build retaining walls to keep the earth back. Civil engineers will know what I'm talking about. Many people think this is just a retaining wall. In fact, it was a Muslim Khalif who, out of respect for the Jewish pilgrims who were there, actually made it easy for them, built a kind of corridor for them, built an alleyway for them, and kind of made it easy for them to use it for pilgrimage. But before him, it was not treated with any major respect anyway. It was only 15th, 16th century that this wall, or 16th century, that this wall took on a significance as a sacred place. And many of the rituals which are done there were never done there. It was actually done in the Temple of Sulaiman, but because the Temple of Sulaiman doesn't exist, it was brought out, some of those rituals, to this wall. So the more you study, the more you research, the more you realize it's quite a flimsy case to say that Al-Haram al-Sharif is the Temple of Sulaiman. It's a flimsy case. You could argue your point, others would argue against it. And even if you proved 100%, this is ancient history. The Prophet ﷺ came. This became an area where a masjid was built. This became one of 3 most sacred sites in Islam. Khalas, that time has gone now. That is ancient history. More than one prophet has come since then. In fact, hundreds of prophets have come since then. And the Sharia has changed, the laws have changed. So don't take it for granted. Don't be ready to confirm 100% that Al-Haram al-Sharif is the Temple of Sulaiman. It could be. or it might not be. And according to some biblical scholars, it certainly isn't. And the true site of the Temple of Sulaiman is further 300 kilometers south in the city of David. So now, why this desire to destroy Al-Haram al-Sharif and to rebuild the Temple of Sulaiman? Why this strong need, this political movement? Money has been plowed into this. In 1980, let me just get my dates right. In 1983, there was a fund set up called the Temple Mount Fund, where Jewish philanthropists across the world donated huge sums of money to put together a fund that could rebuild the Temple of Sulaiman. And where do they want to rebuild the Temple of Sulaiman? Where? On Masjid al-Aqsa. Basically, destroy Masjid al-Aqsa and rebuild this temple. It was established in 1983. And in 1987, the Temple Institute was established. 1987, the Temple Institute was established. Now, right to this day, you will find museums which you can visit where they have already built golden relics which will be going into that Temple Mount. So it's like somebody threatening this masjid, saying, we're going to destroy your masjid. And down the road, they open up a shop and say, this is what we're going to put in the masjid. This is what we're going to have. We're going to have these artifacts. It is an open act of war. So they have already collected money. They have already built relics out of gold and said they already have plans, architectural plans, 3D images, animations. This is when we destroy the masjid. This is what we're going to build. Subhanallah. This is an open act of aggression and war. Open act of aggression and war, threatening the sanctity of Masjid al-Aqsa, that we will build on top of your masjid this, we will destroy your masjid, we will wipe away its remains. This is a global site of significance. This is not just important for Muslims. All across the world, people recognize this as a sacred sanctuary, as a place of great importance. So since the 80s, this mission has been established to destroy Masjid al-Aqsa and to replace it with this temple. Now, why? Why? Israeli people are not even particularly religious people. Okay? You will find that there is a lot of tension in Israel with Orthodox Judaism. What is the big deal? Why not just let Muslims peacefully pray in this area? The state of Israel is already an independent Jewish state. What's the big deal? Why are they so intent on destroying this masjid and rebuilding this temple? Why?
Once they destroy, the Muslim histories vanish from Israel.
That's it. That's really what this is all about. There is no Temple of Sulaiman, this great building, this great spiritual homeland. This is not of any real significance. Until a few hundred years ago, it wasn't even something that had any religious significance that was practiced. It is about wiping out the symbols of Islam from that land. That's what it's about. And to understand this, you have to understand the history of Judaism in Europe. Okay? We all know the tragedy of the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews were killed, not by Muslims, by Nazi Germany. 6 million people killed in the Holocaust. But what a lot of people don't realize is that is just the tip of the iceberg. Before that, Europe used to commit these kind of atrocities all the time in what's known as the pogroms. In different countries, in London, in France, in Germany, in Austria, in Poland, wherever there were Jewish, Hungary, wherever there were Jewish centers of population, now and again, you'd find riots, you find mass murder, you find killing of Jews. So deep in the Jewish psyche is the belief that whenever they live with other people and other religions, eventually those people will turn on them and kill them. Hundreds of years of experience they've had with this. Where is the only place they have ever found safety? With Muslims. With Muslims. That's the irony of it, of this whole situation. The only people who have ever given them security and safety in their history are the people they are intent on wiping out from Palestine. If you go back, it's really ironic, if you go back to Christian writings from early kind of Islamic history, you find like letters from various Christian priests, like to the Pope, complaining. You know what they're complaining about? These Muslims are way too soft on the Jews. Because it's part of Christian history to always kill, murder, rape, pillage Jewish centers of population. Why? Because they killed our God. They crucified Jesus. So it's part of the revenge which goes throughout history to kill Jews all the time, all the time, all the time. So deep in Jewish psyche, in their mindset, is the belief that to truly be safe, they must have a Jewish homeland. Now, we don't have time now to go into the history of the establishment of the state of Israel, which is really, as the Palestinians call it, the Nakba, the catastrophe. For almost 70 odd years, the Palestinians have suffered this. The reason behind removing Al-Aqsa Masjid is to effectively remove the last major symbol of Islam from Palestine. And to wipe out Palestine, its identity, its indigenous people, and to have a pure, truly Jewish state. That's what destroying Masjid Al-Aqsa is about. It's not about the Temple of Sulaiman. For many people, they're not even religious in Israel. They don't have any particular strong beliefs about the Prophet Sulaiman. Nobody's really 100% sure where the Temple of Sulaiman was anyway. It's about removing the symbols of Islam from that region. The tragedy is, in Islamic history, Muslims and Jews have always lived peacefully side by side. Muslims have always respected Jewish people and their right to practice their religion. A lot of people, when they say Islamic State, non-Muslims, never mind non-Muslim Muslims, we don't even know what we're talking about. We think of the Khilafah as this strong state that forced everyone to become Muslim. It never was like that. It never was like that. Would you believe in the Khilafah, on a local level, people used to regulate their own communities. So if you were, let's say, a Muslim Hanafi school of thought, and you had a dispute with another Muslim, you would go to the Hanafi scholar and he would judge between you two. What if you were a Jewish person and you had a problem with another Jewish person? Where would you go? Where would you go? Say you're a Jewish person living in the Khilafah, in the Islamic State. You have a problem with your Jewish neighbor. You have a dispute. Where would you go? You would go to your local Jewish court. The Islamic State would allow devolved power to local communities. Jewish people used to run their own affairs according to their own religion. Christian people would run their own affairs according to their own religion. Muslims would run their own affairs according to the Sharia courts. And the Khilafah would not impose on these people. In the public space, yes, you can't now bring your religion into the public space. You can't now have a Jewish person now who comes out openly drinking alcohol. No, you can't do that. But on a private level, you follow your religion, you resolve your own disputes the way you want, and the Khilafah would not impose on them. It is a modern concept of a state that controls everyone's lives. This never used to exist in the Khilafah. Yes, the main issues of collecting zakah, armies, the main laws, that govern the public sphere, yes, that was controlled by the Khilafah. But on a local level, Jewish people are living their lives according to Judaism, Christian people are living their lives according to Christianity, Muslim people are living their lives according to Islam. There is devolved power, but the condition is you don't now propagate your religion in the public space. That's why you go to Egypt, you find huge churches which have survived over the centuries. Nobody tried to destroy them. You find Jewish communities in Arab countries, nobody wiped them out. So this is not about anti-Semitism, this is not about hatred of Jews. You have to understand this. This idea of hatred of Jews doesn't come from Islam. It comes from Christianity because of Christian beliefs that they crucified the Son of God, Jesus. Islam has always lived quite well, peacefully, with Jewish communities. The Prophet ﷺ, when he came to Medina, he wrote a very advanced treaty known as Wathiqatul Medina, offering protection and safety to the Jews who lived around Medina. The whole idea of peaceful coexistence with Jews has existed from day dot. Because even the term anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews, it's not just hatred of Jews, it's hatred of Arabs as well, because Semite means Arab or Jew. So the idea never existed in Islam. People are now judging us by Christian standards instead of judging us by our own religion. This desire to destroy Masjid al-Aqsa and our desire to defend Masjid al-Aqsa has got nothing to do with hatred of Jews. It's got everything to do that this is one of the 3 sacred sites in Islam. And this land, Palestine, it is Muslim land. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Isra, Barakna hawlahu, we have blessed the region. There is no Israel which has a right to exist there. You don't go into a pre-existing country, wipe out its people, destroy its institutions, murder, rape, torture, and then just take over the place and say this belongs to me. That's not the way the world works. That's not the way the world works. And that's certainly not the way Islam works, that you can do this. This place is Palestine, and it will return to a single country known as Palestine. But that doesn't mean that Jewish people will be expelled. Jewish people have been living there for a very long time, peacefully, side by side with Muslims, flourishing. It's only this influx after World War II of Jews from Europe and their extreme views which led to this idea of the Jewish state, that this country now needs to be Israel, and all Muslims need to be expelled from this country, and Masjid al-Aqsa needs to be destroyed, and we need to build the Temple of Sulaiman. This is a very extreme view, a minority view within Judaism, and that is known as the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement. And you have to understand where these people come from. These people have undergone hundreds of years of pogroms, of Holocaust. So their mindset and their belief and their perspective on life is that we cannot survive and we cannot live until we have an exclusively pure Jewish state. But if only they understood that Muslims and Jews have been living side by side peacefully for hundreds of years. So the solution for this region, the only solution for this region, the only people who have ever ruled Jerusalem and Palestine peacefully is who? Muslims. You put it in control of the Zionists, chaos, fighting, murder, killing. And it's not just about Masjid al-Aqsa. The most sacred Christian site is just around the corner from there. The Holy Sepulchre, the church where they believe is the center, is the most sacred site in Christianity. It's the most sacred church in Christianity. And who administers that church? Who runs that church? Who is the person responsible for kind of keeping the peace between the Christians? It's a Muslim. You cannot let the Christians in that church loose because they just fight each other. If you actually go on YouTube, they're actually like come to blows, the different sects of Christianity. So they actually have to have Muslim guards keep peace between the Christians. This is the most sacred site in Christianity. Once the Zionist movement takes over that region, they will destroy everything. They will destroy Masjid Aqsa, they will destroy this church, they will destroy everything. They're not religious people. Theirs is a political aim, an aim of ethnic cleansing, of making an exclusively Jewish state. Now, what do Orthodox Jewish people, people who are followers, true followers of the Jewish religion, believe regarding this site? You'll be shocked to find that the most senior rabbis in Israel, such as Chief Rabbi Shlomo Amar, who is the Sephardi Chief Rabbi of Israel, he gave a declaration in 2012. Now listen carefully to this. This is the most senior Jewish authority in Israel. This is not some renegade rogue scholar. This is the main person they refer to for spiritual guidance in Israel. He said, "It is a sacred duty to awaken your hearts to the fact that it is completely forbidden, according to Jewish law, to go up to the Temple Mount. This prohibition has been simple and clear for a long time and has been forbidden by all of the great Torah scholars." This Jewish rabbi and all Orthodox Jewish rabbis, they prohibit any Jewish person even entering Masjid al-Aqsa. Now the reason they prohibit it is another story. Without going into too much detail, there is a place in the original temple of Sulaiman known as the Holy of Holies, which only the chief rabbi was allowed to go into. It is the most sacred place for them, and no other person who is impure can step there. So because they don't know where that place is, they do not allow anyone to go into that area, into the Al-Haram Al-Sharif, who is Jewish. So for different reasons, to be honest, not the same reasons as Muslims, but in a sense we all agree, Muslims and Orthodox Jews, that no Jewish person should go into that area. Now in July 2017, as you know, there were some troubles. You must have saw on the news, the protests, the desire to put metal detectors in. All of this was a complete smokescreen. The real reason why those troubles flared up is that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, stormed Masjid al-Aqsa. They stormed the masjid, even though it is a sacred Islamic sanctuary, even though their Jewish rabbis have said it is prohibited for them to go there. They stormed the masjid. They kicked out the public workers who are the responsible for, it's called the Jerusalem Islamic Waqf, which is funded by the King of Jordan. They kicked them out and they stole the trust deeds for that region, for that Haram al-Sharif, and for many properties in Jerusalem. That was the real reason for this whole kerfuffle, this protest going on. Now, when you steal the trust deeds for a property, what do you think your intention is?
Possession.
Take possession of it. As you know, it is a very classic Israeli kind of tactic. Well, what's your proof? Who said you own this place? You know, where's the trust deeds? Yeah, you stole them. Very openly, very clearly. For 3 days, the masjid was under lockdown. They stole a number of important documents relating to the waqf of this place. So this place is under attack. Under attack. And we don't even know what our own religion says about this place. We don't know what Orthodox Judaism says about this place. There are Orthodox Jews now who are on the streets of Israel protesting, who have been arrested. There are Orthodox Jews who have attacked IDF soldiers on the streets, beaten them up. This is how strongly they feel about this. And it's very clear in the newspapers, in the Israeli newspapers, but we don't know about these things. And we are beginning to kind of just suck in the propaganda that, oh, the reason we that this is a sacred Jewish place and we have a problem with Jews. No, we don't. We don't have any problem with Jews. Okay, Jews have lived peacefully with Muslims side by side for hundreds of years. But that is not a sacred Jewish site. That is an Islamic site. That is the one of 3 sacred Islamic sanctuaries in the world. The Prophet ﷺ prayed here. It is encouraged in our religion to go there. It is encouraged in our religion to give sadaqah for its upkeep and well-being. And the only people who have ever brought priests to that region are Muslims. If you put it in the hands of others, you will find out and out war. This is the reality. Because no other religion has the experience of running and administering other religious minorities. You see, we should be so thankful for Islam, brothers and sisters in Islam. In other religions, they don't even know how to deal really with other religions. Because they've never ruled, have they? Think of the Khilafah of Islam. From the time of the Prophet ﷺ to the late or early 20th century. We're talking a good 1400 years worth of experience on how to rule from a religious perspective. When has Christianity really ruled? Never. What we have now is a kind of balance where you have a secular state with some religious influence. When has Judaism ever ruled? Never. Never, ever. So as a result, when these people are given some kind of power, they don't know how to exercise it properly, in a mature way. Islam, we have our fiqh, our madhabs, our books, our rules, our complex systems. We can bring peace and stability to that region. Other people can't. Other people are unable to do so, and we can see through history how their solution to everything has been, let's just kill everyone else. When the Crusaders came there, their solution, let's just kill everyone. Kill Muslims, kill Jews, kill everyone. Kill other Christians we don't like. When the Israelis take over the place within 40, 50 years, their solution, let's bomb everyone to smithereens. Yeah? Let's just bomb all the schools, all the Palestinians, all the children. Let's just drive them out their land. Only Islam comes with that mature fiqh that, no, these people can live, but they have these responsibilities, these rights. That's why only Islam has ever brought peace and stability to that region. So it was a Khalif who allowed Jewish people to perform their rights at the Western Wailing Wall. It is a Muslim administrator who brings peace to the most sacred church in Jerusalem. And it is, of course, the Waqf, Muslim Waqf, which runs Al-Haram Al-Sharif. The long-term solution for this region is one country, Palestine. A country which is open for Muslims, open for Christians, open for Jews, where they peacefully live together. But let's not now go down the road of apartheid, where we say, yes, Israel, and then we'll have West Bank and Gaza Strip for Muslims, living in the largest open-air prison in the world. No, this is not a solution. The solution, one country, one people, Palestine. Inshallah, with this we'll stop. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وجزاكم الله خيرا. I do apologize, we went off on a lot. There's a complex situation. Each one of these individual themes we could give a lecture about. About Sulaiman alayhi salam, about the temple of Sulaiman, about the archaeological evidence, about the history. And sometimes just to try and put it all together can be quite difficult. But the parting advice from the Imam of Masjid al-Aqsa was, go and visit. Go and visit. Yes, alhamdulillah, we make umrah, we make hajj. That's good. That's part of our religion. But if you can, go and visit. Go to Masjid al-Aqsa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to go there, to pray there. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us part of the solution, inshallah, not part of the problem. Wa jazakumullah khair.